Hey everyone, and do welcome yourself back again. Say, welcome me. I welcome you. It's me and you. Welcome. That went well to start off with. Okay, we're back here to do another video here, and someone asked me to do this one by request here. Heart Center Awakening has many different stages of growth and activation. Can you give us more information on that particular topic? Yeah, I think I can do that. And let me just say that right off the bat, the very first thing that I want to talk about, which everybody experiences from time to time, is this is going to be, I'm not going to put this in any kind of chronological order, all right, because I see what's happening out in the spiritual community. If you put the word stages in, everybody takes it, well, not everybody, but a few people take it literally. Okay, this is the stage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I see people saying, okay, I've gone through stage 2, now I'm on to stage 3, and then when I get through that, I'll go on to stage 4. I'm completely done with stage 2. I'm completely done with stage 3. That's not how this works. There are so many variations of this, depending upon each and every individual's state of being and state of mind at the time that they have a heart center awakening. So some of them will be similar, and some of them will be totally different. And the very first thing that I do want to talk about, and again, this is not in any kind of order, but I'm going to speak about the stages in general terms so that everybody else can figure it out on their own where they're at. And believe it or not, there is a stage that actually takes place before the heart center awakens, believe it or not. Call this number 1, if you will. And this can happen anywhere up to a year or more before the individual can actually be experiencing an actual heart center activation. And at this particular point, a person might be in a very dissatisfied period in their life. They may be very unhappy with their career, their job, their marriage. They may be questioning what the hell are you even here for? Is there any real purpose to being here? And they may have reached a stage where they've had their share of material things and material objects, and material things no longer seem to fulfill them in any way. And they may have difficulty sleeping for an extended period of time. There may be a great sense of restlessness and a great urgency to do something or go somewhere, but they don't know where it is and they don't know what they want to do. And they would probably find at this point also, if I remember correctly how I felt, their state of mind being really out of focus or off, and they would be all over the place. And at this particular point, this can go on for weeks and months in some people, and even a year or more in some cases. I've seen this happen. And this is setting you up, literally, for the actual heart center activation. Now, in my time, okay, and that would be 40 years ago, that was a long time for some of you. At that point, heart center awakenings and Kundalini awakenings and connecting with someone didn't happen all at the same time. When I started my awakening, the first thing that happened was a signal experience that I had. And then I started a year later the Kundalini awakening. And then 4 years later, it was actually the heart center activation. So for me, it was different. So some of the older people may remember it that way. But the precursor that I'm talking about now at that stage is prior to. is pretty much still going on, and many people are still going through it. So when they say they've actually had a heart center activation and they can feel it, it actually started a long time before that. They were just getting prepped for it, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So I guess the next stage that, if you want to call it a stage that happens, is the actual activation of the heart center chakra. This is the beginning, the very beginning. And the symptoms and the signs of all of this are relatively all of the same, pretty much for everybody, with differences based on their individuality. And that would be, the breakdown of their present relationship, marriage, whatever. It could be complete loss of a very good career, making good money. Some people have even found themselves in a situation of being almost homeless when this stage happens, and everything that can fall apart does, and it usually does it very quickly. And the one thing that you have is lack of any kind of control, it seems, of preventing, stopping, plugging, or impeding this complete state of chaos initially in the beginning that's going on. And for each individual, it's different because it's kind of a clearing of the old slate, of the old chronological belief systems, and depending on how deeply they've been templated, this part of the heart center activation can be excruciatingly difficult and very painful. And I've also found that in many cases, this can begin almost strategically, in many cases when many people are in a relationship already, and the relationship is already falling apart even before this happens. And this seems to act as a catalyst to bring some relationships and marriages to an end that were coming to an end, but the people or the person was reluctant to actually do anything about it because there didn't seem to be any options. But once the heart center activation takes place, options didn't seem to matter. It just seemed to matter that they get out of the relationship. And this, at this particular point, is the activation of the actual heart center chakra. And most people relate to it by pain or breathing difficulties or energy in the chest kind of thing, spinning, rotation, lights, colors, action, sound, a whole bunch of, some cases even euphoric types of symptoms going on through the body. And at the same time, Kundalini probably begins to awaken in just about everybody nowadays. It wasn't that way in the past, but nowadays it is. And there's a complete state of confusion. Add in the factor also that usually at this particular stage, the beginning, is if it is essential to that person's spiritual growth, they usually meet or have a meeting or a connection with another person, be it male or female, depending upon their preference or whatever, that they deem that they are falling in love with or going in love with or being in love with, or some kind of concoction idea that they've come up with that this is the one. And in many cases, what's happening is both people are usually very wounded, have a lot of dysfunctional patterns and a lot of belief systems that need to get into the way. And these need to be removed through the coming together of two people. Now, in many cases also, which is not quite that common anymore, the whole of these symptoms can happen to a person all by themselves, and they don't have another person come into their life. This does happen, but not as much as the other way. I think that would be considered the second stage, and I want to mention this one in here between us, kind of call it the third, if you will. Periodically, what happens in this stage here, and it will happen in every stage as we go through them, just be mindful of that fact, is you will experience periods, sometimes short, sometimes a bit longer, where all of a sudden you don't feel nothing anymore. You don't feel no heart center, you don't feel no feelings, you just don't feel anything. You don't feel no love or anything like that, or what you perceive to be love coming out of the heart center chakra, and it's like, what the hell happened? It's all gone. I'm not feeling it anymore. What's happened is basically your body physical and your body etheric has adapted to the shift and the change in the vibration and moving up, if you will, hopefully, into a bit of a higher state of consciousness. And it's adapted to that particular spin and cycle. So it'll feel like it's not there. It is, but you're just not feeling it anymore because all of the other parts have adapted to it, so the vibration has become ho-hum, kind of everyday kind of thing. So what happens then is you'll go into a stage then where the heart center can get bigger, as it were, like the spin can get bigger, and it can begin to spread, as it were, wider all of the time. Let me put it this way. It's usually at this particular stage that a person comes to the realization that the heart center is not just there for a short period of time and then it kind of goes through a lot of stuff and then stays where it's at and that's it for the rest of your life. The heart center chakra specifically is continually in a perpetual growth situation. It never changes. It never evolves. It never stops evolving, and it never stops changing, and it never stops growing. I got that all backward. And periodically you will get these periods where you're given a timeout, so to speak, so the body adapts, and that's why you don't feel nothing. But at some point, what will happen down the road, as these changes are going on for an extended period of time, once your concepts of love, relationship, and sexuality begin to change and evolve, and a lot of your old belief systems begin to change and fall to the wayside, you go through what I call the phase in combination with the heart center, where you learn to have a relationship, as it were, with the most wonderful person in your life, you. Prior to that stage, you're usually looking for someone else in a connection or some kind of a relationship who fulfills that need for you at that time. You must get, through heart center activation, to the point where you feel that the most wonderful person in your life is you, and the most important relationship you can have in your life is with you. When you get to that stage, you get a quantum leap. You no longer, per se, need to be in the lower vibration of the heart center. You can now move to the higher. At this point, what will happen is there will be a shift in the body, and at this particular point, the heart center will, how am I going to describe this the best way I can, I guess? The heart center kind of reaches down, if this is going to sound very off here. It kind of reaches down into the solar plexus chakra, and it begins to draw up, as it were. This is now because of your personality change, and it's a very important phase. We'll use this one as number 4. It begins to expand, and it kind of reaches down into the solar plexus and starts to draw up because the personality has become more stable. All of the feelings or expressions of emotions that one would previously express through the solar plexus chakra, anger, jealousy, passion, the positive, the negative parts of the emotions, if you will, up into the heart center chakra, but because of the personality changes that the person has gone through, they then would have the same kind of feeling. You could feel anger, you could feel jealousy, you could feel all of the negative ones, but suddenly they've changed a bit. They come up and they're expressed now through the heart center chakra. They're still the same emotions and feelings, but they express differently. In other words, you could experience anger, but the anger is, it's different. It's changed. It's kind of, you kind of question why you're feeling anger, and you kind of look at it from a parental perspective and say, yeah, I'm feeling angry, and it really doesn't make any sense the way I'm feeling angry, blah, 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 and that kind of thing happens. And this is drawing up the energy and the feeling of that through the heart center chakra, because what's happening is a lot of triggers, if you will, that haven't been released through others or through a partner or through the twin flame experience or the soulmate experience. So it's all the same, just different variations of it all. You would let go of those triggers or those belief systems through the heart center chakra. Once it does that and it clears out the greater part of the emotional center, it then begins to do something that I've described before in other videos, and this is via the heart center. remember something. Because of the change of personality within you and the belief system that you've let go of, and some of the dysfunctional patterns, what happens is your heart becomes like a heart brain, if you will. And it starts doing the thinking from a higher vibration or a multi-dimensional perspective, a lot of it of which you won't understand literally until much later, as your spiritual maturity has grown and evolved to a much more intimate connection with higher self, oversoul, whatever you want to name it. But in the meantime, in this fourth stage, you're drawing this up, as it were, and expressing it through the heart center chakra, because you've developed the personality to be able to understand it. And it's at this point also in this fourth stage where you're drawing this up that it's very likely that the eighth chakra, not the dimensional chakra, but the wishing well or creative chakra also kicks in and starts to activate. And this would begin to set the stage, more or less, for you now becoming a co-creator. So basically, if I'm looking at it from a number point of view, you don't really start getting your co-creative powers back until you get to the fourth stage. Now, let me put it this way also. As I'm going through these stages, it's not just one stage to the next stage to the next stage. You could have them overlapping as they're unfolding within you. So don't take this all as being literal in the sense like they do in a lot of the twin flame stuff. Oh, I've done stage 1, stage 2, and I've done stage 3. Don't do that. This can be overlapping as it's taking place within an individual from 2 or 3 of them at the same time. So as you're going through the fourth, a bit of the co-creative powers are given back to you, but on a limited basis, according to the leadership you've applied to yourself, the relationship you're having to yourself, the confidence that you have developed, and the self-awareness and realization that you have acquired, and the authenticity that you have acquired through all of these changes that you've gone through. So the heart brain is now directing it. And this means that it no longer requires the spin, as it were, because now what happens, it has access to all of the chakras, your heart brain does, because now you have the spiritual maturity to be able to handle it. And please don't try to understand it all. You never will. Even I don't fully understand it all. I have a basic working understanding of it that I can convey to you in simplicity, just to give you awareness of what's going on. And you need to be aware of some of what's going on at this particular point in time. So as the fourth stage, begins to unfold, and you begin to express the emotions through the heart center or heart brain, as I like to call it. And the reason I call it a heart brain is because at this point, what's happened by hook or by crook, usually in the fourth stage, is a person has started to realize that the imagination or the imaginative faculty and the heart center energy or the heart brain need to work together to become a co-creator. That usually happens in the fourth stage. So the fourth stage is kind of an important one. And also what happens at this point, as the assimilation of the emotions take place within the emotional center, the solar plexus area, as it gets in tune or in balance and it's brought up and cleansed, purged, and you're experiencing it differently, at this point, the heart center usually loses its spin altogether. And then it can reach down below the solar plexus, go into the next chakra, and the next one, even down to the base chakra, as it were. It can reach into any chakra at that particular point. So what happens is you would have let me describe it to you. You may have almost like a V in the center of your chest, and it would extend down, going right down even to the groin or the tailbone area, and it can draw up from any chakra, starting with solar plexus first, because you've got to start there. That's where most of the templating of the emotional body is. And then it can go into the lower chakras after that, one by one. And it can begin a purge and a cleanse. And this part of it here, I'll call it the fifth, if you will, after the fourth in the solar plexus. The fifth stage is this extension or removal of a spin cycle in the middle of the chest, and it reaches down like a V, if you will, or if you want to call it a pyramid, it doesn't matter, and reaches down into the other lower chakras to begin a cleanse and a purging. And this would begin in the dream state, as you call it, because that's the best place for people to handle it, and then it would filter down into their conscious awareness of knowledge and experience over a period of time. So now, as this is happening, we get into, as I mentioned, the fifth stage when the creative chakra begins to open also, and they begin to work. All right. Now again, anywhere and in between here and there, as the heart center begins to reach down into the lower part of the body, and I need to mention this because it's important, this is where a lot of people are experiencing a lot of symptoms. They're experiencing digestive symptoms, they're experiencing bowel problem, they're experiencing problem with their sexuality, their sexual energy. A lot of changes are taking place. Sometimes they have a lot of sexual energy, sometimes it's gone for periods of time, and they wonder what the hell's going on. The physical body has to adapt to all of these particular changes that are going on. And let me say this, and please do understand it in the way that I'm giving it. Sexuality and sexual energy is most important during spiritual awakening. No sexuality, no spiritual awakening. It's that simple. So what happens at certain stages as you're going through this, what happens is the sexual energy is Kundalini energy as it moves up, and it's produced within the gonads, all right? So what happens is they can be stimulated, depending upon the need of the body, to produce more energy or more sexual energy, or it can be pulled up, and all of that sexual energy can be pulled up to use to make changes within the body physical, the body etheric, and even the chakra system as it goes on. So many times there will be quantum changes within the sexuality or sexual energy as a whole. And the body symptoms will change because the body must adapt. Here's the rule of thumb when you're having a heart center awakening. Whatever happens to you in regards to chakra awakening, heart center development, the body has to adapt to it each and every time. Every time there's a shift up, there's going to be a body, a part of the body, or organs in the body that need to adapt to that particular shift, and you need to understand that. That also means at this particular point where we are now, is people need to understand, and I did this in a previous video, now they need to be taking food into the body physical that is suitable for the changes in the organs and the parts of the body that are being modified and changed according to the heart-brain development of the heart center chakra. This is where intuition and intuitive guidance must, in all cases, be followed instead of belief systems about eating, because you must have the nutrients, you must have the food intake that contains a lot of high energy light frequency to it. Okay, and I'm double mentioning that one. And this is in the fifth stage at this particular point. All right, now, at this point, when you've gone through the fifth, did I say the fifth, or you're going into the sixth? At the sixth stage, what happens is this. Prior to this, everyone has been templated with the 12 chakra system within themselves. It's at this particular point in the sixth when the heart center becomes a pillar, all right? And the pillar of light, and again, there can overlap here with some of these, so keep that in mind. It's not just blah, 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 blah. It's not a one-size-fits-all here. There are variations, and keep that in mind. I'm going to keep mentioning that throughout the video. So once you get to that, you get a pillar of light that people can experience all the way through. And at this point, when you get the pillar of light, which is the combination of a being, not a vortex of energy anymore, but a pillar that seems to go through the body. And some people will see it, some people will feel it, some people will not even be aware of it at all. And some of the experiences that I've already mentioned, people will not have or be aware of at all. It depends upon the individual, whether you're a purple people eater, okay, that can sense, feel, or whatever to the greater degree, or how empathic you are, and it will vary from person to person what they sense and feel. So don't take it literally, what I'm saying. Use what's viable to you. Remember, you're an individual, and you're a leader, and you're growing and evolving, and it's not going to be 1, 2, 3, and one size fits all. So when you get to the pillar of light, this is the time and the moment when the next phase, number 7, I believe I'm at. I didn't write this down. It's all coming from whomever, wherever. Somebody might say, well, it's all bullshit. To you, it could be all bullshit. Okay? To other people, they're going to exactly know what I'm talking about. So when you get to this particular 7th stage, what's taking place at this particular point is the whole of the 12 chakra system is now potentially activated. This creates that state of multidimensionalism within people, and they begin to start to co-create even more. And manifesting quickly for them becomes a little bit easier. Why? Because they've developed the responsibility and the leadership of self and the spiritual maturity, not the childhood, teenager spiritual maturity that most adults have. And that's not a criticism. That's not a criticism, because anyone who knows anything about evolution and spiritual awakening knows that most of society all over the planet basically live in a teenage mentality, just in older bodies. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a fact. Because if you want to ask yourself this question, how many people did you grow up with that you didn't see for 20 or 30 or 40 years, and suddenly you bump into them? They haven't changed a bit. They're just the same as they were when they were a teenager, just older. You see? And this is what the major amount of people are like on the planet. I'm not saying anything judgmental or critical about them. So when you get to that 7th stage, the 12 chakra system begins to activate, and this is where, again, you will actually feel these things happening, or you will know they're happening by what's going on within the dream state. You'll be having what some people like to call deja vus. You will be shifting, initially in the beginning, into states of being and states of consciousness, and you'll just be doing something and suddenly you're somewhere else, kind of thing. And you're drifting into what I call different timelines and dimensions, but you're now experiencing it consciously. Remember something, it's wonderful to want higher states of consciousness, but you have to be culturally, emotionally, mentally, and have a sense of maturity of character and personality to be able to handle that stuff. This is not kids' play. This is serious shit here, people. And I can tell you something, you're not going to be allowed to have more power or greater access to the universe unless you become an adult through a process of evolution and spiritual growth, which is taking place right now on this planet. So that was, I think, number 7. And again, all of this takes place, and there can be different stages at different times and overlapping. I'm emphasizing this point again. And again, suddenly it can all disappear, and then it's gone. Then you get into what I call the 8th stage, which is really fun, okay? This is where you kind of lose control again, all right? And suddenly, have you ever heard that song, Falling Into You? Okay, I think it was a popular song a few years ago. Well, that's what starts happening, is because all of a sudden you've reached this level of maturity, you have a handle on yourself, and all of a sudden you start connecting with people, and it happens spontaneously. It's not initiated by you consciously or for any ill intent or anything, and you just find yourself melting into another person you never met before in your life, and you could be with your twin flame, you could be with your divine partner, you could be with your soulmate, and you say, what is going on? Well, at this particular point in time, because you've become like a very special lab rat, a very special lab rat is very useful because it can transfer to another person something that another person requires. But how do you do it? If you had to sit there and write letters and communicate back and forth on Facebook, it would probably take you 5 years. But if you do it by transfers and you pull a falling into you, or you just jump right into the person's body and energy field all by yourself, and you go, what the kind of deal? All right? What's happening is this is the stage of multidimensional consciousness that's coming perennially to a lot of people in a very short space of time. Basically what it is, because a lot of people in the spiritual community have reached a stage where they're authentic. They don't have any motivations of power. They don't have any motivations of manipulation or control or any form of agenda, remember that word, hidden, subtle, or otherwise, of what they want a person to do or what they want to get from a person, can actually give to a person, actually what most of you call, and don't have an idea what you're talking about, unconditional love. Unconditional love is an energy, it's not a word. It can be given to another person without attachment, and without that attachment can come the information, knowledge, and experience that that person has. And two people can do it simultaneously at the same time. It would have a very orgasmic feeling to it. Initially, it probably might feel like you're in love with the other person, but not necessarily. Some people will still succumb to that particular attribute and find themselves getting into two-way, three-way, four-way love triangles that are just spontaneous experience of transference, but they'll understand it later as it happens. And this is going to continue on. This is going to be a way of communicating in the future that is already common amongst what you might call beings and entities beyond three-dimensional reality. And beyond three-dimensional reality, entities and beings don't use verbal communication. They use nonverbal communication, which is energetic in nature, and it's very common. So people on the planet are now learning it and experiencing it, and this is at what I call the 9th level, and it can be a little bit confusing initially as it happens. How am I doing with this video so far? Not bad? Freaking right, this is hot, man. This is hot. Pay attention here, I'm on a roll. So anyways, at this particular point, it becomes very, very important that the individual who is experiencing this again is like you have no control over these things, okay? Control is gone. So my suggestion is when these things and you have that connection with someone, observe it, feel it, sense it, enjoy it. Don't have any expectations or agendas, and let it take form. Let it take form in any which way that it chooses to, because it will happen that way. Whatever means takes place will happen. And it doesn't mean everybody's going to run off and get into orgies and all kinds of stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is if there is a connection forming of any way, faith, or form, allow it to take place on its own without any agenda or any interference from the individuals in question. This facilitates also at the same time the ability to do something that I predicted in a reading in 1994 or 5, where my higher self, John, said in a group of people, and I can remember we put it on cassette tape, I still got the tape, where John said that a person will be able to sit down and be typing on their typewriter in the office kind of deal, or computer now, whatever, and be able to simply let the body continue doing what it's doing with a small portion of consciousness that's necessary to operate whatever they're doing and go wherever they want. Separate from themselves as a being or entity or a state of consciousness and go be and do whatever they want to. And everybody in the group thought he was full of shit. I never thought so. I thought he was way ahead of his time. That time is now. It's happening now, right now, today. And during that period of time that this is happening, a lot of you I know are going to answer with comments and say, I'm experiencing this right now. This is a very important stage of the heart center awakening process, all right? And it's going to continue for an extended period of time. It's going to take some getting used to at this particular point. So I think I went through 9, and let me see if there's any more that I need to give here. No, I'm being told that that's enough for now. It'll give you kind of a crib sheet to work with. I will do one later again on the heart center chakra as we get into incorporating. Oh, wait, hang on. Okay, one more. The last part that I want to give here too is after you go through this stage here, this is where you're given back your garment. Okay, I'm going to call it your garment, because without this garment, you're not complete. And the garment is what I call the Meridian System. And the Meridian System is contained within the etheric body. And the Meridian System cannot awaken until it has a clear template or a clear etheric body to do that. And it's fully awakening now in individuals that are doing this. It was sporadically opening in individuals who were partially or all pretty much in the right direction. But now at this particular point, we call this the 10th one, if you will, the Meridian System, now open, functioning, is now going to become fully accessible to those individuals who know how to use it and know where it's located, specifically all of them. And I will be giving that information at a later date as we go along, but I think this should suffice for now. Is that enough? Okay. Yes, I'm told that that's enough. So everybody have a good day. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. That's what you had to say. Take care. Every day you live is a great day for everyone else, isn't it? At least it should be. Take care, everybody.